"You need to leave this house in 2 weeks, Mom," Romy said, her voice calm but sharp, slicing through the quiet morning air. Martha's hands froze on the teacup she had been holding, and for a moment, the room seemed to shrink around her. Every memory of this home, the birthdays, the holiday dinners, the countless Sunday breakfasts, flashed in her mind, a mosaic of laughter and warmth now shadowed by a sudden chill. She didn't answer. She didn't cry. She simply set the cup down, feeling the cool porcelain against her palms, tracing the rim with a careful finger as if the small motion could anchor her to something real. The sunlight fell through the kitchen window, casting long streaks on the hardwood floors, and Martha noticed the tiny scratches she had lovingly repaired years ago, reminders of a life built with care. Wade sat across the room, shifting in his seat, avoiding eye contact, a silent participant in the quiet drama. Martha's gaze wandered to the photos on the wall, her husband smiling at a fishing trip, Wade at graduation, family holidays, each image a testament to decades of devotion, now feeling almost like relics of a world that no longer existed for her. She took a slow breath and let it out evenly, her chest rising and falling in a deliberate rhythm, steadying herself against the rising storm of emotion. Claire, her niece, appeared in the doorway, hesitant, whispering, "Aunt Martha, I think Romy is trying to take control of everything." Martha turned her head slightly, acknowledging Claire without a word, her mind already racing through the details, recalling the small signs she had ignored. Romy's subtle shifts of furniture, the careful arrangement of financial papers, the way Wade now flinched at casual requests. Martha's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile, not of amusement, but of calculation. She moved slowly through the rooms, observing every corner, noting every detail, letting each memory and each discrepancy settle into place. Her hands brushed over the mantel, touching the familiar carvings her husband had made, feeling the weight of the years, the presence of love that had once filled these walls. She paused at the staircase, listening to the faint creak of the steps beneath her feet, a sound that had always been home. Each motion was deliberate, a silent assertion of her awareness, of her understanding that while others may think her compliant, she was quietly preparing, observing, and remembering. Her eyes fell on the ledger she had kept tucked away in the study, every receipt, every note, a record of the life she had maintained for her family, and a reminder that knowledge can be more powerful than anger. The room was still, save for the distant hum of traffic outside, yet within Martha, a quiet resolve was growing, a strategy forming in the calm center of her mind. She would not rush. She would not act rashly. But the moment would come when everything hidden would be revealed, and when it did, she would not only confront the injustice, but do so in a way that left no doubt about the strength and intelligence she carried within. And as she looked back at the kitchen table, at the place where countless meals had been shared, Martha felt the first stirrings of controlled determination, a sense that though the house was theirs to claim, the heart and mind of its keeper would not be so easily displaced. The house was quiet in a way that made every small sound echo too loudly. Martha moved through the rooms, her hands brushing over the polished surfaces, each touch a reminder of the care she had put into maintaining every detail over the years. She opened the cabinet to check the arrangement of her china, noting that nothing had been moved, but the awareness of Romy's past intrusions lingered in her mind like a shadow. The morning sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating dust motes floating lazily in the air, and for a moment, she allowed herself to breathe, to feel the calm before the day fully began. In the living room, the photos on the walls seemed to stare back at her, silent witnesses to decades of family life. She paused at a framed photograph of Wade as a boy, holding his father's hand, both of them smiling under the warm glow of a summer afternoon. Martha's gaze lingered, recalling the times when her husband had gently guided Wade, and the family had shared laughter. That now seemed distant, almost fragile. She moved to the study, where she carefully laid out papers and notes she had kept tucked away, records of bills, letters, and small reminders of everyday moments. Each sheet represented a story, a detail of life that Romy had tried to reshape in subtle ways. The thought did not anger Martha. Instead, it sharpened her focus, clarifying the importance of observing every pattern, every small decision that hinted at manipulation. As she walked down the hallway, the familiar creak of the floors underfoot reminded her of the countless times she had paced these same paths, planning dinners, checking homework, or simply making sure the house felt alive and welcoming. Now, with the stillness pressing in, she noticed the absence of sounds that had once defined her home: the laughter of grandchildren, the chatter of friends, the soft hum of appliances working in unison with human presence. She stood by the window, looking out over the neatly trimmed lawn, the autumn leaves scattered like forgotten moments across the grass. Martha allowed herself a small, deliberate smile, thinking about how appearances could be deceiving, how calmness could mask determination. Every action she had observed, every word she had noted from Romy and Wade, would be catalogued in her mind, forming a map of intentions and opportunities. As the minutes passed, she sipped her tea slowly, the warmth grounding her, giving her time to reflect and to plan. She thought about the coming days, the conversations she would need to have, the subtle ways she would uncover the truth without confrontation, and the careful balance required to maintain dignity while asserting awareness. Martha walked back to the kitchen, adjusting a small vase of flowers, noticing the curve of the stems and the brightness of the petals, allowing the small beauty to anchor her amidst the tension. She reflected on the quiet strength that had carried her through decades of family life, the patience required to navigate delicate situations, and the wisdom that comes from understanding human behavior. In that stillness, she knew that the power of observation, the accumulation of small details, and the patience to wait for the right moment were more formidable than any direct argument. She could see the lines of strategy forming in her mind, a web of subtle actions and careful timing that would allow her to address the imbalance without raising alarm, ensuring that every move she made had meaning and consequence. The house, with its familiar angles and memories embedded in the walls, served as both sanctuary and stage, and Martha understood that the careful orchestration of perception could reveal truths in a way that mere confrontation never could. By mid-morning, she had walked through every room, catalogued every nuance, and settled into the living room, the sunlight catching her silver hair, a quiet emblem of resilience and measured purpose. In that room, surrounded by the artifacts of a life fully lived, she felt the weight of knowledge and the power of silent readiness, aware that patience, awareness, and composure were her most potent allies as the day unfolded and the family dynamics continued to reveal themselves. The morning continued in measured silence, the sunlight stretching across the hardwood floors and casting a warm glow on the familiar furniture. Martha moved deliberately, arranging the cushions on the sofa just so, her fingers lingering on the soft fabric as she recalled the many afternoons spent reading to Wade when he was a child. Each small action was deliberate, a testament to the patience and care she had woven into every corner of her home. She paused at the dining table, running her hands over the polished surface, remembering the countless family dinners she had prepared with love, the laughter and conversation that had once filled the air now replaced with a tense quiet. From the corner of her eye, she noticed Wade entering the room, his movements hesitant, his eyes avoiding direct contact. Romy followed closely behind, her posture carefully controlled, a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. Martha did not speak. She did not acknowledge their presence immediately. Instead, she focused on the details, the way Romy adjusted a photograph on the wall, the careful placement of silverware, the subtle rearrangement of items. On the counter, small movements that spoke volumes about intentions and priorities. She allowed herself a slow breath, steadying the rhythm of her heart, feeling the calm, yet resolute center of her being. In the study, she took note of the ledger she had maintained, every entry a record of diligence, care, and responsibility that had sustained the household for decades. The weight of these records was not in authority alone, but in the clarity they provided, a map of trust and observation that could not be dismissed lightly. Martha moved through the kitchen, setting a fresh vase of flowers on the counter, the petals vivid against the morning light, a quiet signal of continuity and presence. She remembered Claire's warning, whispered hours before, about Romy's quiet ambitions, and Martha allowed the caution to guide her awareness without disrupting her composure. Each step she took was mindful, each gesture deliberate, an unspoken assertion of attention and discernment. She noticed the faint scuff marks on the floorboards, the subtle shift in shadows as the sun moved across the rooms, and she catalogued every detail in her mind, knowing that these small observations would shape her understanding and eventual response. Martha allowed the familiar surroundings to anchor her, drawing strength from the continuity of her home, the echoes of past joys, and the quiet discipline that had shaped her character over the years. The air held a gentle warmth, the distant hum of neighborhood activity filtering in through open windows, a reminder of the world beyond these walls. And yet within the confines of her house, Martha's attention remained precise, observing patterns, noting inconsistencies, and preparing for the moment when subtle insight would convert into action. Time seemed to stretch, each minute an opportunity to reflect, to notice, and to prepare, and Martha moved through the spaces with the calm authority of one who knows the history of every object, every corner, and every interaction that had occurred within these walls. The realization that understanding and patience could be as powerful as confrontation settled within her, providing clarity and focus. As she reached the end of the hallway, she paused once more, glancing back over the rooms she had traversed, aware that the balance of perception and observation she maintained would ultimately guide her toward the precise moment to address the imbalances she had silently witnessed and catalogued, ensuring that every action she would take in the unfolding day would be measured, purposeful, and quietly commanding. The afternoon sun shifted, casting long patterns across the carpet, and Martha moved through the rooms with quiet deliberation, her eyes noticing the smallest details, the faint fingerprints on glass, the subtle shift of light against the walls, each one a clue to behaviors and intentions she had observed over the weeks. She paused at the living room window, watching the neighbor walk by with a dog, the ordinary movements reminding her that life outside this house continued as usual while inside. A different kind of calculation unfolded. Her mind traced the patterns of Romy and Wade's actions, each instance catalogued, each gesture noted, without the need for confrontation. She remembered the careful way Romy had placed financial documents on the counter, the way she had subtly rearranged family heirlooms, a series of small manipulations that could easily be dismissed by anyone less attentive. Martha did not dismiss them. Instead, she let each observation settle into her consciousness, the calm accumulation of knowledge becoming a quiet form of power. She moved to the kitchen, touching the edge of the countertop where Wade had accidentally spilled coffee last week, and allowed herself a small, measured smile. The stain had dried, inconsequential to most, but to Martha, it represented the need for careful attention, a reminder of the fragility of appearances versus reality. She reached for a notepad she kept in a drawer, flipping through the pages filled with careful observations, dates, and notes, each entry a record of consistency and awareness. The room felt larger as she spread the pages across the table, reviewing them, absorbing the details, letting each memory and observation reinforce her sense of understanding. She heard the faint shuffle of Romy's shoes from the other room and did not react immediately, allowing the sound to register fully, noting the hesitation, the measured steps. Martha sipped her tea, the warmth grounding her, while her mind quietly plotted the timing of her responses, the way she would unfold the truth with precision and grace. She allowed herself a pause, closing her eyes for a moment, visualizing the coming days, the careful orchestration of words, actions, and positioning that would reveal clarity without chaos. Her silver hair caught the light as she moved back toward the hallway, a silent symbol of experience and patience, and as she walked past the photographs on the wall, she acknowledged each memory, each moment of shared laughter and care, knowing that the strength of her presence was built not on volume, but on awareness. In the quiet of the house, with the soft hum of distant traffic and the subtle creak of the floorboards beneath her feet, Martha felt the calm confidence of someone who had observed deeply, prepared meticulously, and understood that the power of insight and measured action would ultimately reveal the truth. She adjusted a cushion on the sofa, smoothing the fabric, and allowed herself a brief glance at the clock, noting the slow passage of time, each minute a step closer to the moment when the careful balance she maintained would allow the revelations she had silently prepared to emerge naturally, with precision, and with undeniable effect. Every small action, every deliberate movement, reinforced the sense of calm authority that Martha carried, the silent but firm assurance that she was fully aware, fully prepared, and fully capable of addressing the imbalances she had catalogued with quiet, deliberate intelligence, waiting only for the right moment to act. The late afternoon light filtered through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the carpet as Martha moved with careful precision, her attention caught by every slight shift in the room. She walked past the mantel, her fingers grazing the edges of the framed photographs, each one holding a memory of laughter and shared moments, a silent testament to the life she had nurtured and protected. She paused at the edge of the dining table, noting the small imperfections, the faint scratches that told stories of meals prepared with care and celebration of birthdays long past. Her gaze shifted to the study where the ledger lay open, pages filled with detailed notes of daily tasks, receipts, and reminders, a record of responsibility meticulously maintained, ready to serve as a foundation for understanding the patterns she had been quietly observing. Martha moved back into the living room, adjusting a throw pillow, the soft fabric brushing against her hands, a small act of order that brought a sense of control amidst the subtle tension that had been building in her household. From the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Wade glancing toward the window, his posture tight, a slight furrow in his brow betraying uncertainty. Romy entered behind him, speaking softly about errands and plans, her words casual, yet the undercurrent of intent was clear to Martha, the subtle steering of conversation and attention a familiar pattern she had seen and catalogued. Martha allowed herself to sip her tea slowly, feeling the warmth spread through her hands and into her focus, each moment reinforcing her awareness and clarity. She noted the way Romy arranged the pens on the desk, the gentle tap of a fingernail on a paperclip, the way Wade's eyes flicked to the clock, measuring time without remark. Each motion became a detail in Martha's silent record, a map of tendencies, of influence, of intention, all quietly observed without interruption. She paused at the staircase, the wooden banister worn smooth by years of touch, and traced the line of the rail with her fingers, thinking about the countless times she had guided footsteps up and down, teaching, caring, overseeing. That history was hers, embedded in every corner, a quiet authority that did not require words to assert itself. Martha moved back toward the kitchen, brushing a few leaves from the counter, adjusting a vase of fresh flowers, the simple gestures a contrast to the intricate mental choreography she maintained. She considered the upcoming moments, the conversations, the small opportunities to reveal understanding. Without accusation, to allow the truth to emerge through observation and subtle correction rather than confrontation. Each action, each pause, each careful step built toward an invisible crescendo, a moment where the clarity of perception would speak louder than any spoken word. Martha settled into a chair by the window, observing the slant of the sun, the faint movement of shadows, the rhythm of life continuing around her, all while she quietly prepared, catalogued, and understood every nuance, her awareness sharpening, her composure absolute, and her sense of timing precise, knowing that patience and insight would ultimately create the clarity she had been cultivating, and that when the right moment came, every detail she had collected would align to reveal the quiet, but undeniable truth of the household she had so carefully maintained. The afternoon light softened, spilling across the floors and walls, and Martha moved deliberately through the rooms, observing everything with calm attention. She paused at the kitchen counter, brushing her fingers lightly over the surface, noting the faint fingerprints and the subtle rearrangement of objects that indicated Romy's presence and influence. Each detail was catalogued silently, every motion and gesture adding to her understanding of the household dynamics. Martha walked past the mantel, her hand lingering over the frame of a photograph where Wade had been captured mid-laugh at a family picnic years ago, a reminder of the warmth and stability that had once defined this home. She allowed herself a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the grounding presence of her memories as she considered the patterns of behavior she had quietly observed over weeks. Romy entered the living room, speaking softly about a new arrangement for the finances, while Wade hovered nearby, hesitant, eyes darting toward Martha for an unspoken reaction. Martha did not respond immediately, letting the words and movements register fully, noting tone, body language, and subtle cues that revealed intentions without needing to speak. She sipped her tea with measured calm, each swallow reinforcing her composure and clarity of thought. Her mind traced each interaction, weaving together a clear map of influence, decision-making, and the subtle maneuvers that had shifted the balance of control within her own home. Martha moved to the study, opening the ledger she had maintained meticulously over the years, every note, every record a reflection of diligence, care, and awareness. The pages told a story, one of quiet authority accumulated through observation and precision, and Martha felt the satisfaction of having prepared thoroughly without confrontation. She returned to the hallway, fingers tracing the worn banister as she moved, each step deliberate, her awareness acute, cataloging the passage of light, the faint sound of movement, the rhythm of daily life within the house. The small details, from the placement of silverware to the subtle shifts of shadows across the floors, became markers in her mental map, each one contributing to her understanding of timing and perception. Martha adjusted a cushion on the sofa, smoothing the fabric, and glanced at the clock, aware of the slow passage of time and the quiet accumulation of insight that would guide her future actions. In the living room, she paused again, absorbing the interplay of light, memory, and observation, feeling the steady grounding of experience and knowledge. Each step she took, each object she noticed, each memory recalled, strengthened her ability to respond with precision and patience, knowing that control and clarity did not require confrontation but could be maintained through awareness, careful planning, and the subtle orchestration of perception. The house remained calm and still, yet Martha's mind was alive, weaving connections, understanding intentions, and preparing for the right moment when insight and preparation would reveal the truth in the quietest, most effective manner. She walked toward the window once more, letting the warmth of the sun fill her awareness, every detail accounted for, every observation catalogued, ready for the unfolding moments to demonstrate the depth of her understanding, the patience of her preparation, and the quiet strength that had always been the foundation of her presence within this home. The evening. Shadows stretched across the floors as Martha moved through the living room, her steps measured and quiet, each one intentional. She paused to look at the photographs on the wall, the snapshots of decades spent caring, nurturing, and guiding her family, recalling the laughter that once filled the house, the whispered words of encouragement, the quiet pride she had felt watching Wade grow. She adjusted a lamp on the side table, noticing the subtle smudge on its surface where Romy had absent-mindedly rested her hand, a small detail but one that did not escape Martha's careful observation. The air carried the faint scent of the flowers she had arranged earlier, and she inhaled slowly, grounding herself in the familiar comfort of home while keeping her mind alert to the nuances of the day. Romy's footsteps approached from the kitchen, soft and deliberate, and Wade followed, his eyes briefly meeting Martha's before darting away, a flicker of unease passing over his expression. Martha did not speak, allowing the silence to settle, letting the ordinary sounds of their movements fill the space as she catalogued every gesture, every glance, and every tone of voice. She moved to the bookshelf, her fingers grazing the spines of carefully chosen novels and family albums, noting the small signs of handling that marked human presence and intention. The ledger in the study called to her attention, its pages filled with records that spoke of diligence, care, and attention to detail, all quietly chronicled to ensure clarity and understanding in the household. She sipped her tea, the warmth a steadying force, and reflected on the pattern of interactions she had witnessed, the subtle shifts in behavior, the careful orchestration of appearances, all pieces in the larger picture she had been quietly constructing. Martha walked back toward the hallway, pausing at the window to watch the evening light change the hue of the walls, casting familiar objects in a new perspective, allowing her mind to map the subtle dynamics at play. Every movement of Romy and Wade, every shift in the room, every small action, became part of Martha's growing understanding, the accumulation of evidence that would guide her precise and thoughtful responses. She thought about the coming days, the conversations she would have, The observations she would deploy, knowing that subtlety, patience, and timing were her most powerful tools. The rhythm of the house, the warmth of the setting sun, the quiet flow of life outside the window, all served as a backdrop for Martha's inner focus, her awareness expanding with each careful note of what had transpired and what might yet unfold. She adjusted a cushion on the sofa once more, noticing the crease in the fabric where someone had leaned, and allowed herself a faint smile, the smallest acknowledgement of the control she held within the stillness. Martha moved toward the study again, running her hands over the ledger and the neatly stacked papers, appreciating the clarity that came from preparation and observation. Each corner of the room, every small detail, reinforced her understanding and composure, reminding her that insight and patience were more powerful than haste or confrontation. As the light faded, casting long shadows across the rooms, Martha felt the quiet anticipation of the moments ahead, the confidence of someone who had carefully watched, listened, and catalogued every interaction, poised to respond with precision, dignity, and thoughtful timing when the moment demanded. The house was bathed in the soft glow of the evening, the last streaks of sunlight slipping through the blinds, casting long shadows that stretched across the floors and walls. Martha moved with quiet deliberation, each step measured, each gesture precise, observing the small details that spoke volumes about the presence and intentions of those around her. She ran her fingers over the edge of the kitchen counter, noting the subtle marks left behind, reminders of Romy's careful but telling movements. Every slight shift, every rearranged object, every gesture of avoidance or hesitation had been catalogued in her mind, forming a map of interactions and subtle manipulations. She paused by the living room window, the warmth of the late sun falling on her face, and allowed herself a calm breath, feeling the grounding presence of home and memory. Her eyes traveled over the photographs on the wall, snapshots of years filled with love, care, and the quiet victories of family life, moments that had shaped the rhythm and heartbeat of the household. Wade sat quietly on the sofa, glancing occasionally at his mother, his posture tense, while Romy moved through the room, speaking softly about the schedule for the week, her tone casual yet calculated. Martha observed without interruption, noting tone, inflection, body language, and subtle cues, allowing each piece to build a comprehensive understanding of the underlying dynamics. She moved to the study, running her fingers along the spine of the ledger, each page filled with meticulous records, a testament to years of careful attention and quiet authority. Every note, every observation, every small action captured in her mind provided clarity and insight that would guide her next steps. Martha walked slowly back into the hall, the creak of the floorboards underfoot a familiar rhythm, a quiet reminder of the home she had maintained and preserved. She adjusted a throw pillow on the sofa, smoothing the fabric with deliberate care, and noted the faint dust patterns, the sunlight reflecting differently on each object, the subtle signs of human presence that most would overlook. Each moment, each observation, strengthened her awareness and patience, reinforcing the calm and strategic approach she had cultivated over decades of careful attention and deliberate living. She sipped her tea, the warmth a grounding presence, allowing her mind to trace the patterns of conversation, movement, and attention, preparing for the moments when subtle action would reveal understanding without confrontation. The quiet hum of the neighborhood outside, the fading warmth of sunlight, and the gentle stillness within the house provided a backdrop against which Martha's awareness and patience became powerful allies. She stood at the window once more, letting the light illuminate her reflection and the contours of the home she knew intimately, recognizing that the accumulation of small, deliberate observations and the quiet maintenance of composure would ensure that when the right moment arrived, the clarity, authority, and insight she had cultivated would unfold naturally and unmistakably, leaving no doubt about the depth of her understanding and the careful precision with which she had prepared for this time. The evening deepened, and the house seemed to settle into a quiet rhythm that allowed Martha's awareness to stretch fully across every corner. She moved through the rooms with deliberate attention, noting the slight unevenness of a picture frame, the subtle dust patterns on the shelves, the way light fell differently across familiar surfaces, each detail reinforcing the understanding she had cultivated over the days. Romy and Wade were present, their movements precise yet unconsciously revealing, their conversation a soft backdrop that did not escape Martha's careful observation. She sipped her tea, letting the warmth anchor her while her mind traced patterns of interaction, noting subtle cues, the shifting focus of attention, and the hidden signals in tone and gesture. Martha paused at the kitchen window, watching the fading light, observing the shadowed reflections in the glass, allowing the quiet to expand her awareness, reinforcing the clarity that had been steadily growing with every observation and careful reflection. She moved to the study, flipping through the ledger that had become her map, each page filled with meticulous records, small details, and insights gathered through patient attention, a record of observation that would guide the precision of her next steps. Her fingers lingered on the spines of books, the edges worn from years of careful handling, each object a reminder of continuity and the grounding presence of home. Martha reflected on the days past, on the subtle patterns she had noted in Romy and Wade's behavior, the careful orchestration of appearances, and the understated control that had shifted subtly around her. She allowed herself a faint, deliberate smile, recognizing the quiet power in preparation, patience, and the accumulation of knowledge that did not need confrontation to be effective. Walking back to the living room, she adjusted a cushion, noting the indentation left by previous use, a small mark, but one that reinforced the continuity of observation. The evening settled, the light fading to soft shadow, and Martha felt the calm, yet potent readiness she had nurtured, a careful balance of composure and awareness that would allow her to act with precision when the moment arrived. Every gesture, every glance, every detail noted over days and weeks coalesced into a silent understanding of timing, of strategy, of the subtle way influence and perception worked within the household. She stood near the window one last time before night fully fell, observing the exterior world, the quiet neighborhood, and the fading warmth of the sun, allowing the stillness to heighten her senses, sharpen her insight, and reinforce the quiet authority she held. The house, filled with decades of memories, care, and careful observation, felt like both sanctuary and stage, each room echoing with the history she had maintained and the awareness she had cultivated. Martha knew that the culmination of her patience and observation would soon reveal clarity, that the careful preparation she had invested in understanding every nuance of her home, her family, and their intentions would emerge naturally in time, delivering insight and resolution with the calm precision of someone fully aware, fully ready, and fully composed.